Good afternoon. Welcome to the February edition of our Supply Chain Management Series. As always, if you have a question during the webinar, raise your hand, and if I can, I'll answer your question right then. If not, stick around after the webinar, and I'll stay online to answer any and all questions. And again, as always, our webinars, if you want to see any of our previous webinars or review this one, you can go to our webinar page, and we have an archive of previous webinars there. So let's get started. Today we're going to review a case study about using planning bills of material. What we're going to look at is defining what a planning bill of material is, then how to build that planning bill of material, and finally we're going to wrap it up with how to use planning bills of material. So here we go. The case study is actually about a company that I worked at several years ago, small startup organization. I was the vice president of operations there. And if any of you have worked in startup organizations, you know the title may be big, but you get to do a little bit of everything. So at the company, Telecom Analysis Systems, we manufactured a product called a telephone network simulator. This product simulated the impairments to transmitting data on the telephone network. And at that time, the main users of our equipment were companies that were developing modems for the ATM market, because every ATM you stick your ATM card in has to connect to the server, and they do that over the telephone networks. Our product, we entered the market with our model 1010, which had several features and options that our customers could purchase. There were 4 different impairment generator printed circuit boards. That's what's on the top of the screen in green. They could choose 2 different types of storage medium. That's the middle of the screen. And they could choose 3 different programs to run these impairment generators. That's the bottom of the screen. So when the company started, and I joined the company about 14 months after it was founded back in the mid-1980s, we would do planning of the delivery of our product at the finished product level. So we would create the master production schedule for each individual unit that a customer would order. The lead time on this was approximately 6 months from order to delivery. And at that time, since we were selling a product that was new to the market, we only had 2 other competitors in the entire world, we had customers that were willing to wait. And it's a good thing they were, because our stated lead time was 6 months. Our actual delivery time was about 9 months. In about a heartbeat after I joined the company, I realized we had a problem here, because we were selling an item that was configured to order, but we were treating it like a make-to-stock item. So what we introduced in that first year that I was there was this concept of planning bills of material. Now, as the graphic on the right-hand side of the screen shows, we were not doing the master production schedule at the finished item level that we deliver to our customer. We created the master production schedule on the planning bills of material, and specifically what they were for this example, it was the 4 different types of impairment generator boards, the 2 different types of storage medium, and the 3 different versions of software that you could have installed on this product. When we did that, we were building the main assemblies, and I didn't put on here the cabinet and the other things that we were doing at the planning bill assembly, just as to keep it clear what we were doing. But our customers would then place an order, and the process of them placing an order would create a final assembly schedule for their product, configured with the features and options that they requested when they ordered the product. This dramatically shortened our lead time, as we'll see later on. So, planning bills of material are nothing more than doing your master production schedule at the next level down from the finished product that you're selling to your customer. Okay, so that's a brief definition of what planning bills of material are. Let's look at how we made a planning bill of material at Telecom Analysis Systems. Now, we start with the Model 1010, which is at the top of the screen, and then you can see there are 3 areas where we had planning bills of material tied to that end product. On the left-hand side of the screen, we had the impairment generator boards. In the middle of the screen, we had the storage devices, and on the right-hand side of the screen, we have the software program that could be installed on the product. Now, the concept here is this. You create a forecast for what percentage of each order is going to take one of these items. So, for example, on the storage device, 80% of the units that were ordered would take storage device A, 20% of the orders placed would take storage device B. Now, the way you come up with those percentages is by doing a quantitative, intrinsic forecast. In other words, I did the forecast based on our sales history for the Model 1010 for the previous 2 years. I looked at every 1010 that was sold. I calculated how many of impairment board 1, impairment board 2, impairment board 3, impairment board 4 was sold with each item. In doing this, I was able to come up with, for any particular unit sold, 50% of them would have board 1, 50% of them would have board 2, 25% would have board 3, 10% would have board 4. And the same methodology, the same forecasting technique was used for the other features and options that the customer could buy. Now, you may question why on the left-hand side those percentages add up to greater than 100%. Valid question. And the reason that happens is because in our Model 1010, it had 8 positions where you could put printed circuit boards in, and customers could buy 0, 1, 2, all 4, duplicates of some of them, whatever configuration they wanted to buy. So the fact that the percentages for the impairment generator boards add up to greater than 100% is perfectly all right, where a feature can be used several times in a configuration. However, for the other 2 items in the planning bill of material, the storage device, you either had option 1 or option 2. You could not have 2 of them in the same unit. For the programming, you could have option 1, option 2, option 3, but you could not have all 3 of them in the system simultaneously. Now, Leanne asked a question about master production schedule items on planning bills of material. Leanne, to answer that question, if a master production schedule item is used as a component in this example here for our Model 1010, it would have a place in the planning bill of material because it's a component of that finished product. If it also had independent demand where we sold that particular master production schedule item as a standalone unit by itself with no features or options, then you would have a forecast for that demand independent of your planning bills of material. So in your MRP environment, the fact that you have some master production schedule coded items as components in planning bills of material would be perfectly logical to me as long as it met that criteria. If not, then we'd have something to talk about. So this is how you construct the planning bill of material. Now, let's take a look at how you use the thing once you've got it built. Now, bear in mind, Telecom Analysis Systems was a startup company, and we were in a very small niche market. I mean, there was only us and 2 other competitors in the entire world. So the forecasting of the end items that we were selling, I was involved in that because it's a small organization. I didn't do the forecasting. We had a sales department that did it, but I was training our salespeople in how to do forecasting also. And if they gave me a forecasted demand for our Model 1010 of 100 units in period number 5, I would take that forecast along with all the other periods that they gave me forecast for, plug it into my planning bill of material, and then simply run an MRP calculation on that forecasted demand. And the way it works with the planning bill of material, it would take the impairment generator board, option number 1, 50% of the units require that, so it would multiply the 100-piece forecast for the end unit for period number 5 by 50% and come up with a quantity of 50 for that time period. Now, you just, as part of the MRP logic, it then goes about calculating all of the gross requirements for each of the features and options that could possibly go into any one of those 100 units for period number 5. The beauty of this system is that when I was doing the master scheduling, I was able to build the appropriate inventory of the chassis itself. That's the big thing up top with the power supply and all the things that every unit got. And each of the features and options based on how the customers had been ordering them. And if we knew that we were doing something different, I might change the percentages to account for a new feature or option that's going to drive demand. The end of the story, though, remember I told you when I first joined the company about 14 months into its existence, we were shipping the product. We said we were shipping it in 6 months, actually shipping it in 9 months. A year and a half in, when we had implemented planning bills of material and the customer could configure the order right at order placement, we were down to 3-day delivery on a piece of equipment that cost in excess of $20,000 and was configured to just what they wanted. Now, I will tell you that our standard delivery that we would quote would be 3 to 4 weeks because of the fact that we had a backlog of orders. But if we were pushed with a really hot order, we could do it in 3 days from the day the customer placed the order with us. 6 months, to 3 days. One of the reasons we were able to do that was planning bills of material that allowed us to build the appropriate amount of inventory to support the features and options that we were selling with our standard product. So we have looked at, in the past 15 minutes, the concept of planning bills of material, how you would go about constructing planning bills of material, and we answered a question from Leanne about master schedule items showing up on there. And then we wrapped up with how you can use planning bills of material and an example of how telecom analysis systems we were able to significantly reduce our lead time to our customer. And by doing that and by being the most creative as far as technical features competitor in the market, we actually dominated the market after about 5 years. So if there are any questions, I will stick around. Leanne, I see you have a question. I'm going to unmute you. Leanne, are you on? Okay, well, I see you typed in your question. How often do you review planning bills of material? It depends on how dynamic your product design is. And in our case, for the first couple years, we were selling 3 products, our 1010 line, our 100 line, and our 2010 line. The features and options for those first couple years were pretty static. However, after we got production and supply chain and sales and marketing all linked together and were able to compete more effectively, we started then to actually add more features and options. And every time we added a new feature or option, I would have to go back then and change the planning bills of material. Beyond that, if I noticed a significant change in the actual demand for a particular feature or option, I'd change it on the fly right then and there so that the next forecast I got at the beginning of the next month, it would include any changes. So I hope I answered that question. Jeff, I see you have your hand up. I'm going to unmute you. Jeff, if you're online.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, gotcha. Gotcha, Jeff.
Okay. Hold it.
Yeah, if you're on speakerphone, you might want to pick up the headset because you're getting a lot of feedback there. Still with me, Jeff? All right, Jeff, I don't know if we have... hang on a minute. There we go. Just be patient 1 second. Let me unclick you here. Jeff, I don't know what it is with the connection. I'm trying to unmute you, but it just doesn't want to seem to let you speak. So if you can type the question, I'll answer it. If you can just type it and send it to me, I'll answer it right online. I see what it is, Jeff. You need to enter your PIN number for your telephone if you're going to use the telephone. All right, I see you typed it in. Just bear with me. Let me read this for a second here. Okay, Jeff's question was generally who manages the bills of material? Another really good question. Now, in the case study with telecom analysis systems, please bear in mind, we were a startup company. When I joined the organization, I was employee number 12 or 13. We eventually grew to about 50, 60 people. In an environment like that, my engineering department, I gave them the authority to manage the bills of material. However, as the ERP system administrator, I was the ultimate person that could maintain bills of material. So I would give myself the ability to create my planning bills of material. In a larger organization, you would have to have most likely the engineering department do the bill of material maintenance for you. Did I answer your question? Well, it's kind of hard for you to tell when I can't listen to you. But while you're typing your response, Leanne's asked another question. Let me read through it here. Manage MPS for 4 companies with several PLBs for each. And if you just give me a second, Leanne, because this thing is being difficult to read. How many PLBs did you manage? I had 3 product lines, and each product line had basically one model each, the 100 to 1010, the 2010. So I had 3 different planning bills of material in those first few years. Later on, we came up with a 4th product line which generated a set of planning bills of material for itself also. So I was actually towards the end there, the last few years before we sold the company and we all went our different ways, I was managing 4 planning bills of material. I see you're managing master production schedule for 4 companies with several planning bills of material. I would assume that you have access to the creation of them, whoever creates them, and that you're also able to have them add and change things as you see the need arise. So, let's see. Anybody else ask a question here? All right, just bear with me a second here, folks. Okay, well, Jeff, Leanne, thank you for your questions. Let's see. Okay, Jeff, I see your other question here. The other question is, which department in a larger organization develops the structure of the bill of material? All right, 2 answers to that. If we are talking strictly the bill of material of how the product is constructed, that would be the engineering department. If it is the structure of the planning bill of material, that should be strictly the province of the master scheduler, since the master scheduler is the person in the organization that uses the planning bills of material. Remember, a planning bill of material does not show how the product is constructed out on the production floor. It is strictly for the master scheduler's use to do lower level master production scheduling. Okay, did I answer that question, Jeff? Okay. Okay. Again, Jeff, Leanne, thank you for the questions. And everyone else, I hope you enjoyed the webinar. Next month, we talk about understanding the concept of available to promise.